Welcome. Oops, I'm going to share my screen. Welcome. Oops. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So glad you could join us today. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Let me know what kind of offerings you share with your wellness business. And okay, do you have a website? We're talking about website design today, so I want to know.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Pull up the chat so I can read. Don't forget to change your chat to panelists and attendees. That way we're all going to see what you say.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I feel like there's always a little bit of a setup required to get the chat in the right place. Yeah.
There is. Christine, hello. I recognize your name. Yes, glad you have an offering for your website. Hey, welcome everyone who's joining. You are at the Offering Free webinar. Yes, Jill, hello. Suryadi, yes, hi. Welcome, folks. Yeah, and I recognize you, but Danbee may not. So yep, you're doing yoga, mindfulness. Hello, Julia. Let's give folks a few minutes to join. I know we're offering this webinar at a different time than usual. We do our Offering Tree webinars. So yeah, folks, let me know what time it is in your time zone.
Ooh, I would love to know
That
that.
was
I'm
an
in
interesting
Singapore.
question.
Yeah, I'm in Singapore, so it's 8 o'clock in the morning for me, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Julia, I'm in your time zone as well, so I'm glad this worked for you. Ohio, great. 4 p.m. in California. Yeah, Jill, maybe you like this later time. We were thinking the West Coast of the US. This is a good time zone for you folks.
What time have you had it before?
Usually we do about 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's convenient for me, I guess, as the host. It's like right after my lunch, perfect time. You can accomplish things during the day. 7 p.m. Yeah. Okay, Christine, that's right. You're on the East Coast as well. Well, folks, it's 7:03. We have a small but mighty crew. So let's get into it. You folks, I know Christine, Jill, Surya Ivy, your Offering Tree users. Julia, let us know if you use Offering Tree, but we're the all-in-one business platform for online coaches and wellness professionals to sell classes, courses, and memberships. And the reason I'm so excited about this webinar is because web design is one of those things you don't really realize you're going to need to know how to do when you decide to start a business, especially when you finish your yoga training or your meditation training and you're ready to teach. But web design is really an essential skill that we aren't always equipped with. I know for me, design does not come very easily. But I'm so excited that we're going to be talking about inclusive design today, which, we usually think of design as making something look good or like look branded, but with inclusive design, it really is going to make that design work for you too. And so I'm so excited to pass the mic to Danbee Shin, joining us from Singapore. She designs websites for online coaches. So this is what she does day in and day out. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, go off mic, and pass off to Danbee. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Camille. Okay, let me try to do this gracefully. Can I share my screen and get this chat up so that I can see everyone's comments as we go. So welcome. This is 3 easy ways to make your website more inclusive. I know that one of the icebreaker questions was about websites, and I feel like I got a good sense for a lot of you here, but if you don't mind popping in A, B, C, or D based on like where you are at with your website, I feel like this would really help me, make sure that what I share with you today is relevant for you. A is I don't have a website. B is I have a website, but it needs a little work to do what I want it to do. C is I have a website and I'm more than 90% happy with it. This is kind of my bar generally. If I'm 90% happy with it, it's good enough and I can move on to the next thing in my business. And D is I have a different situation with my website. I see B's and Jill says C. I need to update a few areas. Camille says B for my marketing agency. Suryadi says between B and C. Thanks so much for sharing. That is wonderful. That's really helpful for me to know. So I feel like I can make a few assumptions here. And one of those things is that you're in the wellness space to make an impact. I am guessing that your clients mean more to you than just the money that they pay you. Although that is also very important because you're running a business. You know that the work you do has the potential to change lives. And I know a little bit about that because I have worked with a number of wellness coaches. And you run your business online or you plan to. I mean, most of you that we've talked to so far do run your business online because you have websites. And that's because you know that this is how you're going to reach more people and that's how you make a bigger impact. Drop me a 1 in the chat if you feel like this is in line with how you're thinking about your wellness business and why you're online. And if there's something like a little different in terms of why you're online, I would love to hear about that in the chat too. I see ones. Camille, thanks for dropping the ones. Suryadi, Jill, Julia, thank you. I am glad we're on the same page. So what I love about going online is that when you go online, you open yourself up to such a wonderfully diverse audience. And you create opportunities to work with people from different parts of the world, based in different parts of the world, who speak different languages, people with different cultural backgrounds, people with different disabilities, people with different kinds of families and relationships. And these are obviously just a few of the ways that we're different, but one of my favorite things about running an online business is that we get to work with so many different kinds of people. And because of these different layers of our identities, the way we move through the world, the way we experience the world is so different. And there's a lot to learn from each other. And also it's just a lot more interesting when you meet a lot of different people. So if we think about how your website is one of the main ways that your audience can get to know you online, making your website inclusive is important because when you make your website inclusive, it shows your audience that they are all welcome and valued and that you're here to support them. And that's regardless of who they are, what their experiences are, and how they experience the world. And this is why I do the work that I do, because it's so easy when we live the world, we live our lives in a certain way, to make a lot of assumptions about how other people live their lives. And I love getting to share different kinds of stories and helping everyone, including myself, see that the way that we each live our lives is not the only way. So a quick intro about me before we dive into the content. I'm a web designer, as Camille mentioned. I work with online coaches and I make websites for online coaches. I'm also a global inclusion specialist. And in that role, I help my clients build businesses where people from all around the world feel like they belong in the communities that my clients build. And for me, belonging means that you can show up just as you are and feel welcome and valued and supported. I'm also a mentor for web designers because there is such a need in the internet, on the internet, for websites that are more inclusive. And I want to help more people build inclusive websites. I am a South Korean based in Singapore. And the reason I mentioned this is mostly because as someone who is outside the Western world, running an online business, a lot of my experiences have shown me how Eurocentric the online business world is, and I want to change that. I want to change it so that the online business space is a more inclusive space, and that is why I do the work I do. The best way to stay in touch with me after today is on Instagram, and you can see my handle on the screen, Danbee Shin. All right, so I feel like it's a good time to dive into the actual 3 ways that I wanted to share with you today for making your website more inclusive. As I move through the content, please feel free to drop any comments or questions in the chat. I am going to be checking the chat throughout, and I'm happy to stop and answer questions as they come up. So number 1 is to state the dates and times in multiple time zones. This might not be something that comes up when you think about web design. As Camille said, like what we tend to think about is the visual, how things look and feel on your website. But this is so, so important because when you're online, you are opening yourself up to the entire world. You're opening yourself up to people who are based all around the world. I kind of love this slide. This is a pretty recent data. These are recent data points. And as you can see, this was published in April of this year. This looks at the population, the world population online. And then it tells you where people are in the world as a percentage of that whole online population. So for example, in Northern America, which I think includes Canada, the US, and Mexico, although based on the map, that might just be Canada and the United States. I might need to double check that. That number is 7.1%. That means 7.1% of the entire world population who is online is based in that part of the world. But I think you'll agree with me that a lot of the online business content created for English speakers online is created with the assumption that the audience is based in North America. And that means you're leaving out like this entire world of people who are online. And this is important to really think about because it's possible that without meaning to, without intending to, you might be pushing away people who might actually be really great fit clients for your business just because you haven't considered where they might be in the world. And you can see that in some of the numbers are really interesting. Oceania is 0.6%, Southeast Asia is almost 10%, Eastern Asia is 25%. And those are really big numbers that get left out. Okay, so I wanted to kind of make this more concrete, like why dates and times in multiple time zones. So first of all, it's important to think about this whenever you're promoting a live event, and that might be classes, workshops, meetings or group calls or conferences. And often websites are the best place to promote these kinds of things, at least have a page with all the information so that when you're promoting it on other platforms, on social media, you always have a place to point your audience to get all the information. And here are a few things that you can do. I recommend writing down which countries your audience is based in. And for this, your website analytics or your social media analytics can help you. Or you can just ask your people. You can just ask where they are, and you probably already have a good sense for where they are in the world. I like to choose a few big global cities not because that's where all of your audience is, but because most people can use those cities as a reference. So for example, I know that Singapore is not always included as a time zone, but Sydney in Australia might be. It's a little ways off, but I know what my time difference with Sydney is. I sometimes include the time zone or the time for London time zone, and a lot of my Western Europe based clients will be able to know like what time it is in their time zone based on that. Yeah, and then list out your event date and time in those cities. And I'll show you an example of what that could look like in real life in the next slide. But I also want to talk about like why this matters. Like I said, in the context of that world map, there are a lot of great fit clients in different parts of the world who feel left out, when they encounter information that clearly wasn't meant for them. So when you present information about live events in different time zones, they feel like you're talking to them. And more than that, they feel like they're welcome to come and participate and that they'll be valued. There've been so many instances where I have shown up for conferences, live events online, and the message I got sometimes quite explicitly and sometimes implicitly, often implicitly, was, oh, like this wasn't really created with you in mind, but it's great if you're here and you're fine if you want to hang out, but it wasn't meant for someone like you. Um, that's, as you can imagine, not a great experience. And you can turn that around by presenting the information this way. And I feel like the side kind of effect of that is you become more aware of how your decisions impact people in different parts of the world. And that's not to say that it's your responsibility or somehow your obligation to accommodate all the different time zones in the world. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it helps you be more aware of how other people are impacted by decisions you make. And I think that's what matters. Okay, so this is an example I pulled together for today's session. This is if I created a page on my website to point people to, this is how I might have presented it. I have a screenshot from a tool called World Time Buddy. I'll show that to you in the next slide. But I will just say, hey, it's happening on November 10th. It's at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, which is November 11th, 12 midnight London, 5:30 a.m. New Delhi, 8 a.m. Singapore, 11 a.m. Sydney, and click here to see the time in your local time zone. Like this is totally possible to do on your website, and people will appreciate it, I promise. Camille says we can definitely do this with our webinar promotion going forward, offering Tree as global users. And I bet that they would appreciate that. I love that, Camille, thank you. So the tool I recommend, I mean, there's so many different tools for doing this, but I want to give you one recommendation just to keep things simple. I use worldtimebuddy.com. It's free to use. There are pro options. You almost never need the pro options. And it's super easy to use. You just add the time zones you want and you choose the date and it shows you the different times. And it's really neat because it also shows you, it's color coded to show when the kind of, I guess, the daytime is. So you can see like 8 a.m. To 5 p.m. is yellow, and the night times, like the middle of the night times, are dark. And it just gives you a good sense of where, like, how people are affected. I'm going to pause here, take a sip of water, and also see if people have questions. If you have any comments, I'd also love to hear like what your experience has been running an online business and attending live events. If you've thought about time zones before, if it's affected how you've shown up. Christine asked, how would we do this on an Offering Tree website? So you can, I just often simply take a screenshot of the World Time Buddy kind of thing. That's what I've done for this presentation. And you can add that as an image. And I would just write this out just as text. That's easy to read. Is that helpful, Christine? Oh, which is also great. Camilla says Offering Tree shows the time zone and the user's local time zone, which is also super helpful. Sriyati says that, oh yeah, missed lots of things because I got confused with time zones. Oh, that's, I think, unfortunately, a really common experience. And right now, now everyone's changed their clocks. So Europe first changed their clocks and the US just changed their clocks, I know. And as someone who lives in a part of the world where the clocks never change, using a tool like this is so helpful because it also tells you, it also takes that into account, and it also warns you when you're getting close to the dates where people change times. that it's coming up. So the time difference you see today won't be the same time difference you see in 2 days' time. So I love using a tool like this for that. Christine, I'm glad that helped. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I really feel like all three ways that I want to talk to you about today about making a website inclusive are really simple, like small tweaks that you can make in your website that make really big difference. And I feel like for the effort that it takes to um, check times in different time zones and share that information, the impact it has on your global audience is just tremendous. And I totally admit that I I accept that time zones can be super confusing. And it's helpful when we take that as business owners, we take that burden off of our audience and we take that on ourselves. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Tweak number 2 is to use clear headings to organize information. I'm going to show you a quick screenshot to first kind of show you what I mean by this. So this is an example. This is a screenshot from an example website of a health coach, one of my clients. And you'll see at the top, I know the heading, the text is a little small because it's a long screenshot. This is the first half of her kind of homepage. The heading 1 says getting healthy doesn't have to mean a dramatic overhaul. Second section, heading 2 says making lifestyle changes can feel impossible when no one around you gets it. Section 3, heading 2 is it's easier than you think with an expert in your corner. And the next section says in heading 2, I'm Meredith Keith Church. And under each heading is a little bit of paragraph, like what I call normal text. And when I say use clear headings to break up your information and to present it in a way that's clear, this is what I mean. Like use a heading, add a little text, use another heading, add a little text. And visually, as you can see, it's also really easy on the eyes. So this is important for whenever you're writing website copy on any page. Website copy is generally designed so that you're telling your people who you are, who you work with, why you do the work you do, and how they can work with you. I feel like these are some of the most important pieces of information that you want to include on your website. And this can be on any page on your website. And here's a really simple way to think about it. Use one main headline for every page. So on the homepage, for example, on a page you might have about yourself, on a page you might have about your services and events. Make sure that you have one big heading at the top, and that's in heading 1. And then write a headline for each section of each page and use heading 2. And for headings, I generally recommend using phrases or sentences instead of just single words. Sometimes I'll see clients use the word like, they might have like about, or over testimonials, they might have like testimonials, which are better than having no headings, but it's really hard to add a lot of like meaning when you have single words. So I would recommend writing a heading that actually kind of explains what that section is about. Thanks, Gimel. I'm glad you think it's a good tip. And I'm going to run, the impact is so big here. Like in this section, I had to rearrange to make all the text fit. But generally, the point is that it makes it easier to read, makes your copy that you've put in a lot of effort into writing, it makes it easier to read for everyone. And when something is easier to do, people actually do it. And it's so important that people get the information that they need from your website. So first of all, your content becomes easier to skim read. And we know that most people online are skim reading. They're just kind of scanning to the page to see what is important, what they're interested in. People who speak English as a foreign language, they find it easier to read your copy. And I'm just assuming that in our context that our websites are in English, but this applies in any language. If you're speaking that language as a foreign language, it's hard to make your way through like big chunks of text. People with cognitive or learning disabilities that make it difficult for them to read long blocks of text also find it easier to read the text on your website. and people who are visually impaired and they use screen readers. Screen readers basically read out loud the text that's on the page, and they find it easier to get to the information they want. One of the biggest challenges with using a screen reader is that if the information is not organized in this way with headings and paragraphs, um, you have to sit and listen to the screen reader read every little thing out on the page before you can decide like where to go next. Whereas when you have headings, most readers have the function of reading just the headlines, and it helps them navigate the website a lot more quickly. Let me know if you have any questions here. Let me just quickly see what's the next slide is my next step. So I'm just going to pause here quickly to see if you have any questions about headings and how to organize text on any of your web pages. Also, I would love to know if you're already doing this. I want to know if I'm giving you tips that you've already implemented. Camille asked, do you have recommendations for font usage? Legible is always better than cute is my kind of baseline for fonts. Fonts, I would normally say have one font for your headings and one font for your paragraph text, the normal text. So here, sorry, my screenshot makes the text very small, but the font for the headings are different here than the paragraph, and that also helps you the reader make sense of what's on the page quickly. And I would also offer that it's perfectly fine if you use one font, the same font all throughout your website. I would much rather you did that than have 3-4 different kinds of fonts, because it can be distracting and it doesn't really help people move through the website and make sense of the text that's on the website. As you can see, the other thing is to make your heading fonts significantly bigger than your paragraph fonts. And I'm using the word font very loosely here, but let's talk about like the shape and the size of the text. Yeah, the other thing is if there are important parts, if you do have longer bits of text and you want to make it easier to skim read, I recommend highlighting things in bold. So highlighting certain sentences or phrases and making them bold so that the eye goes there first, and it makes it easier for you to skim read as well. Surya Adi said, I tend to be detail oriented and too long-winded. My recommendation when you feel like you have a lot of information to share, but you're presenting it in maybe a longer form than you need to, is to try to break it up with bullet points. This is not how most of us learned writing. Like we were supposed to write full sentences that are grammatically correct, but you can use phrases and you can use bullet points, and it's so much easier for someone who's going through the website to take in information that way. Suryati, have you tried bullet points? And let me know how, what you think about bullet points as a solution to that. You break things up into paragraphs. Paragraphs are great. The other thing is paragraphs online, I think, are best if you keep them to like 2-3 sentences, maybe 4 sentences at most. This is obviously just a general rule of thumb. And that also helps break things up. Bullet points would be better, Suryati said. Yeah, I think they're good to experiment with. The other thing I would offer in terms of design and laying out text so that it's easier to read is adding a lot of white space. You might be able to see that here. There's a lot of space between the different paragraphs, around the different text, and it makes it so much easier for someone to take in that information. Camille says, I tend to follow that advice when writing emails too. Lots of small blocks of text. Yeah, I think we all find that easier. And I love talking about inclusion, because when you make it, it applies, whatever applies to websites also applies to emails. And when it becomes, whatever we talk about tends to be applicable in so many different situations. The other side of being inclusive is that when you make things inclusive for one group of people, for example, let's say you use clear headings to make your information more easily accessible for people who speak English as a foreign language, you're also making it easier for people with disabilities, people who might just not might just prefer to skim read, who have different preferences when it comes to taking in information. And it works for so many different kinds of people with different kinds of needs. And it means that you don't have to necessarily anticipate every single person's individual needs. But when you start thinking about inclusion, you're naturally going to be making life easier for them too. Um, yeah, Camille says centering inclusivity makes it easier for all of us. It's so true. All right, tweet number 3. Provide closed captions and transcripts with video and audio resources. I feel like, let me know if you aren't clear about what closed captions or transcripts are. I think these are common terms for us to use, but stop me, and please ask if we're not on the same, if you feel like we're not on the same page. So closed captions and transcripts are always important whenever you have video or audio content. And on your website, you might have content like recorded classes or calls. You might have sample classes. I know that some of my clients like to upload like an example of what they do with their clients so that anyone can just get a taste of what they do. You might have a welcome video to welcome people to your website. And you might have guided meditation sessions or affirmations. I have a lot of clients who record like audio for that kind of stuff, and podcast interviews. These are just some of the examples that my clients use on their websites. So for closed captions I think of as text, as any kind of like audio content that's turned into text. So the steps I take to provide closed captions is 1, transcribe the recording, 2, export as what's called an SRT file, and that's a subtitles file. And then you upload it to your video host. I know that on Offering Tree, you might be using video hosted on YouTube or Vimeo, and both of these support SRT files as I think they might think of them as subtitles, very similar in terms of in the practical sense. And for transcripts, so if closed captions are synced, like subtitles on video, transcripts are the long form text of the content. And once it's transcribed, I'll just copy the actual text and paste it into the web page so that people can read what was said in the video or audio. That's all it takes. And of course, there's a bit of formatting that you can do to make it easier for people to read and skim read, but this can just be super simple to do. And the impact this has is, I think, on like the more obvious kind of the obvious use case we see that we think of is people who are deaf or hard of hearing are able to benefit from video or audio content, because obviously it's really, really exclusionary to provide content in this way when when it's not accessible for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. But this is also super helpful for people who don't speak English fluently and people who find it difficult to just watch something or hear something and understand everything that's discussed. And just having that bit of text can be super, super helpful. And the thing is, when you provide closed captions and transcripts, this takes the burden of having to ask. I know that one of the best things we can do for ourselves is to advocate for ourselves and ask for what we need. And yes, like if you have people who need closed captions and transcripts, they could also ask you for these things, but It's hard. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot to have to request resources like that, that you know that not everyone needs. And when you take care of that for people in your audience, it makes a world of a difference. And you do it because you want to help. But honestly, it's also really smart practice as a business as well, because who do you think people are going to go back to? People who provide accessibility features like this, or who don't? Surya Adi asked, is that available on Zoom? Um, Closed captions and transcripts. And Camille said, yes, I'm also curious to learn about good resources for Zoom so that we can do it too. So Zoom, I know, has what they call live captions, or maybe that might be an otter feature. I have experimented with it. Unfortunately, it's not been the best in terms of accuracy. What I often do is I haven't figured out the best way to do live captions for live events, but I have taken the recording and popped them into this is what I use, otter.ai, and they have a free plan that's really quite generous. And I shared this because this is for another talk I did, and it's yeah, as you can see, it just gives you the text and it's super easy to use and export. What I've also experimented with is some like live webinar live events kind of software that run on Google Chrome. They can use the Chrome feature that's called live captions, I think. Maybe I've mixed those up. And whatever's playing in the browser can be live caption, which has been interesting to try. Yeah, Camille says that's what I've heard in terms of accuracy. Yeah, we're not, for live events, it's still a little tricky. And also because it brings in, by solving one accessibility issue, I feel like it brings in a lot of other issues, as in people who speak with different accents. The current tools that we have right now aren't really great at interpreting different people who speak with different accents. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that being resolved sometime soon. And that's also why I recommend using a transcription service, and then making sure that you manually verify at least like 90 plus, 95+%, because they're not perfect. These are, Otter.ai is definitely an AI tool, so it's not human checked. So I like to give it that layer of quality assurance. There are other transcription services that are done manually by real people, and that could also be an option. But yeah, we unfortunately aren't quite there with our AI just yet, but it's come such a long way. Camille says you can hire a small agency to transcribe live if you're hosting a very large multi-video event you're investing in. Yeah, I remember when still used to attend large conferences in person. One of the best events I attended was they had, I don't know what they're called. There's a term for that profession. It was in person, but there was one projector that was just for closed captions, and they had someone typing on a specialized keyboard for that, and that was really cool to watch. But yeah, we can definitely do that, set those things up for live events, and that could be something for larger events. Obviously, there's a cost involved, and that is the reality. So just to recap super quick, these are the 3 ways to make your website more inclusive. 1, state the dates and times in multiple time zones. 2, use clear headings to organize information. And 3, provide closed captions and transcripts with video and audio resources. Those are the things I want to share with you today. I think these can be so impactful for the amount of time and energy that it takes. And I am the first to say that this does take a little bit of time and effort. Like, this takes a little bit of care, and you have to really want to do it, because it can be even if it's not the most resource consuming task, it is an extra step that feels additional because of the norms we have in the industry right now. But this really makes such a big difference. And I can tell you from someone who is based in Asia, where in an industry where most things kind of happen with a very Eurocentric lens, these things make a really big difference in how your global audience interacts with you and your brand and your business. That's everything I had prepared in terms of slides. I would love to like open it up, hear your questions, hear your comments, and chat about your thoughts about making your website more inclusive and honestly like other parts of your marketing and sales more inclusive. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Can you all see me too?
Yes, I can see you.
How about when you use images? Do you have any suggestions for alt text for images or captions?
Absolutely. So alt text is important because as we touched on previously, a lot of people use screen readers to navigate the internet, and most people who use screen readers are visually impaired. They cannot see the photo or the image. And especially when that image is important for understanding the context and the information that's on the website, on that page, it becomes really important to, give it text so that the screen reader can describe what the image is. The reality is that most images online have like letters and numbers, not JPEG, and it means nothing to anyone. Or it might say like image one, which is also really not helpful. So alt text is the text that you can add to describe it's alternative text, so alternative to the image, and it just describes what is on the image. So if it's a picture of myself on a website, and it's important because, like say it's my website and I want people to know what I look like, I might say Danbee is standing in let's see, where would I be standing? In the middle of a park. She is fair-skinned, East Asian with short hair. And it can just be that simple. Often I will include information like she is smiling and wearing a black t-shirt, literally describing what's in the image so that people can also get a sense for what is there. I think captions also become really important when you have any kind of infographics or graphs, any kind of like data related image on your website, because not everyone, draws the same conclusions from that image, and the caption, by highlighting what you want people to take away from that image, can be super helpful for people to understand what's happening. So for example, if I had shared that map of the world showing the online population and how they're distributed throughout the world, I might say something like 7.1% of the global online population is based in North America. And I might point out some other their little points there.
I feel
But
like
yeah,
alt text and captions are one of those things where if you take the time to do it, it also helps you in terms of things like SEO. So
oh,
often
absolutely, yeah,
being inclusive actually like makes your website perform better too. So
yeah.
that's just like one example. Yeah, in the chat, yeah, Christine shared. I also like bigger font sizes, being 51, needing reading glasses. I truly just like emails and
Yeah.
websites with small fonts. Do you have any like rules of thumb for font size,
Mm,
Danbee? Maybe that's
yeah.
kind of relative.
It is a little relative, but I think like I can give general numbers, like,
Mhm.
if they're headlines, if we're doing pixels, like I say 24 pixels and above for
Mm.
headlines, like make them big. Um, pixels, points. If they're text, the smallest you should have any kind of like body text is 16 pixels generally. I feel like that's easy for most people to see. Remind me, on Offering Tree, are font sizes in pixels, or is that set?
Who wants to
Is
remind
that
me in the
set?
chat? I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not sure. That's a
I
good
can check
question.
after our session, but yeah, those are my
Yeah.
general like rules of thumb, because again, like Christine says, it's because she needs reading glasses. Other people just like also need big text for other purposes, like so that they can take it in more easily. It's also like, it also is connected to the devices you have, right? It's so easy when we always navigate the web like on your same laptop, on your same phone every day. Like that's what everyone else sees, but it's really, really not.
Yeah.
And having those like bigger font sizes can help also make sure that things show up, and they're easy to read for people on different devices. Yeah, and you can also like different. I think Offering Tree does this like automatically, but you can make things look different on mobile phones so that they're actually
Yeah.
easier on the eyes.
Offering Tree does optimize your site, so
Yeah.
it'll look as easy to read on a small phone as it is on like a
Mm,
laptop or a desktop.
yeah. Which is
Um,
so important.
it really is, especially because most of the world looks at the website on their phone, which when I'm always working, I tend to forget because I work at my laptop, but like, where do I
Yeah.
read my emails? Where am I look at social media on my phone?
Mm,
Um, or buying things. Deborah asked, do the transcribing services also transcribe in multiple
mm.
languages?
So I think because that's more of a translation feature, I don't know that Otter offers that.
Yeah, like if I were to be speaking in German, would it just be like transcribe this in German versus a
I think
translate?
so.
We might have to look into
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's a good question, Deborah.
Yeah. That is a really great question. I'm a bit embarrassed. I don't have I don't have an answer to that, considering how much time I talk about how much time I spend talking about how everything's in English online. Yeah.
Good question, Deborah. We can follow up in the email too with these resources. I'll definitely link Otter AI, and Danbee has a worksheet too. So don't feel like you need to take perfect notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, then Surya ID said, feel like I'm just getting started. We'll need to work on it for a while yet. It feels like it's one of those things you always do. Like you can't be like, done, my website's inclusive or I'm diverse, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I am diverse. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's always about making improvements,
Mhm.
and just keeping it top of mind. Like you say, I don't think you're ever going to be done. There are always more things to do. And what, like something that was really important for me for today's session was to make sure that I made it clear that these are just really like small things you can do. They don't have to be like these massive projects that you undertake. They can just be things that you work on, kind of in the background.
Christine said, and also Deborah says, thank you so much. This has been very helpful. And Christine said, what do you recommend for website structure parentheses tabs? What do you mean
Can
by
you
that,
say,
Christine?
yeah, can you say a little
Yeah.
more?
Maybe you mean like the page organization structure, like a
Mm,
menu and
yeah.
like what goes in the menu?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe what pages
What
to
pages to
include?
include?
Okay.
Yeah. What's out of the box when you start a new website on Offering Tree? I know
We
there's
pro-
like a home page.
yeah, we provide an about
Mm,
services, like memberships if you have that. We have a few pages built in, but you can turn them off or add
mm,
more like as you
yeah.
wish.
Yeah. I think those are all like, I would have said home, about, services, or like the main point, the main
Mm-hmm.
pages you want to have. Contact is always a good one, because it's people, I think people know to look for a contact if they just have
That's
questions.
so true. Like, I want to get in touch with this person. You know, they might have missed the box at the top or not looking at the
Exactly.
bottom. That's
Yeah,
really
just
true. I do that too.
people look for contact. So yeah, those are the main pages I'd have. Honestly, I am all about keeping things as simple as possible. And yeah, home, about, services, contact, and then of course, based on what your business has, whether you, like Camille said, whether you have a membership, whether you have events, things like that, you can add on.
Great questions, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm also here to answer any questions, just like website related in general. Like
Yeah.
Camille said, this is all we do day in, day out, literally every day.
Ask a
I'm
web
looking at
designer.
websites. Yeah.
Hmm. If you are doing like a website audit and you're
Mm.
kind of thinking, you know, I've put this stuff up, but I've done it very quickly, and maybe my services have changed. Like, what kind of things are you looking for to like fix if you're going through that
Mm.
process?
So if your business and what you do has changed since you
Yeah.
first set it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got more questions coming in too.
Okay.
Uh,
Generally, I am always thinking about like what do you want to offer? And for someone to buy that offer, what do they need to know? Right. So I would really focus on that. And I would kind of go through the information that I have on the page and say, okay, is this important? Like, do they need to know this? Do they need to see this? Um, and if not, like, what do they need to know? And I would focus on those elements. Yeah. Julia
um,
has a question about connecting it to Google. It's not necessarily related to this, but I will try to answer the question if I can. Please ask away. Deborah says we have a subscribe button on the Offering Tree website. How do you advertise a free offering in exchange for subscribing? Subscribing like newsletter?
let me go find that help article for you, Deborah. Because there is a way you can attach like a worksheet or a video or a
Nice.
freebie. So let me find that and share that with you.
Yeah, that's also super smart. Like I'm a big fan of having um, some sort of a free offer for people to learn more about like how you can help, get a little taste of what you're like. Um, and yeah, I run a lot of my marketing over email, so I'm a big fan of getting people to sign up.
FYI, everyone, I'm going to support.offeringtree.com. And that's a great resource if you're like, how do I do that again? Or
Mm.
what if I want to move the page? So check it out. Okay, I'm pasting it in the chat and I will also share in the email. This is how to send an email with a lead magnet to new email subscribers. And a lead magnet is just another term for freebie or free offering, as you said.
That's awesome. Julia says, Google, I feel like I connected it to Google, but also had a previous website designed by Wix, but I'm not sure if it's connected to my website and how I can send people a link for Google reviews. Is there a specific way to do it on Offering Tree?
Oh, okay, you're looking at me. So Julia, yes, I should, I think you're talking about Google Analytics. So you can connect Google Analytics. Yes, yes, all
Okay.
caps. Google Analytics. Yes, there's an easy way you can connect your Google Analytics to Offering Tree. That's how you can check that's connected. And then as far as sending people a link for Google reviews, so I'm curious, have you done Google reviews in the past, or is this something new you'll need to set up? Start receiving emails from Google. Okay. Well, I'll send the link here. Feel free, Julia, to reach out to support@offeringtree.com. I know sometimes when you transfer sites, Google Analytics is not that user friendly, so we can definitely help you out. And I'll drop the help article here just in case anyone else has the same question.
But okay, Julia already has reviews from previous websites.
Julia, definitely reach out to support@offeringtree.com. We'll make sure it gets okay. We'll pass it along.
But yeah, Google Analytics honestly like is yeah, is a bit of a beast.
It can be a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julia, definitely. We'll make sure we get that sorted out. Um,
Yeah.
these have been great questions so far, and I'm going to put out last call. Any last minute calls about website design, inclusivity, um, and how to make more clients buy on your website? Now's the time.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Sir Yadi. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really learned a lot about building a more inclusive website. I hope you did too. If you're watching the recording, thank you for making it to the end. We're really happy you're in our offer entry community, and we'll see you later.